In this week's Parsha, we find the first lav in the Torah. Up until now, we had the mitzvah of Peri Verivia, the mitzvah of Bris Milah. In this week's Parsha, we find the lav of Gid Hanashe. Actually, last year over here we spoke about, was it already Bisman Yaakov? We see it's already Bisman Yaakov. Is it a new Isser, Bisman Matan Torah? Just like many other, call it Tumlin, a Mavucha, controversy about different mitzvahs over the generations, machine matzahs, when it came out, at one point a Sroigim with Murkiv, B'nai Ashkenaz only eat chicken, the chickens that have a Messiah, so there was different chickens that were found, the Barclays chicken. So Gid Hanashe also, at one point, hundreds of years ago, there was a Shaila, a very interesting Shaila that came out. There was a story at the time of Rabbi and Eibeshitz, a menaker, a one that's a mumcha, that knows how to take out, to find where the Gid Hanashe is and take it out. The Isser of eating Gid Hanashe, so you have to take out the Gid Hanashe from the animal. He came and he said that the Gid that we think is the Gid Hanashe that we're taking out, that's a mistake. That's not the Gid Hanashe. What Kollel Yisrael is taking out for the past thousands of years, that's not the right one. He had rayas, it's something else, it's a different Gid, a different vein. Like Rabbi and Eibeshitz says that this menaker, the one who he was a mumcha, he says he was a mumcha, he was a baki, he was a Yirei Shamayim. It wasn't just somebody that decided from one day to the next. He actually, he was in the Indian, he knew what was going on, and he said that this is not it. And he went around from place to place. He went to the Gedolim, from one city to another city, to explain that we should be machmer and take out this Gid that I'm talking about. Till he came to Rabbi and Eibeshitz in Prague, and he showed him. And in Crazy, he speaks about it. He brings this story of Hine Bizmani Hoye Menaker Echad Bal Torah Mumcha Mo'oid. So he says he went all around, and he came to me to ask me the question, and he says, I went through the Indian, I was boidik, and says Rabbi and Eibeshitz, I found a smag, that the smag says that the din of Gid Hanashe is noyig b'zecharim u'b'nekevos. B'zecharim u'b'nekevos. And this Gid that this person, this mumcha is referring to, is a Gid that's only by a male animal and not a female. And the smag says that it's noyig b'zecharim u'b'nekevos. So it can't be. This mumcha wanted to say that this new Gid is the Gid Hanashe, but it's only found, very interesting, this Gid is only found in a male animal, not a female. And in Smag it says that the Isser is noyig, b'zecharim u'b'nekevos, male and female. Oibazoy, it can't be this Gid. And the Meira, he closed up this parsha. It's a mistake. He had rayas, but Lamaisa it can't be. Agav, he says, Umiyoim omdi al daiti. He says, I was, when I understood the complication of nikr, says Rabbi and Eibeshitz, I did not eat only from where I did the nikr myself. Umiyoim omdi al daiti, that I learned hilchas nikr to be a baki, and to understand clearly what's going on, samachti al menakir, only what I did myself. But al kapanim, there was this big tumult, and the menaker wanted to say it's a new Gid. So Rabbi and Eibeshitz said it can't be this new Gid, because Lamaisa, this new Gid is not found in a female animal. What's the shaila on this? What's the shaila? The Chassam Sofer and the Tshuva brings Makshem Ha'olam on this Rabbi and Eibeshitz, on this crazy, when the smag and let's say the chinuch says noyeg b'zacharim b'nekevus, what is it referring to? It's talking about the animal zacharim b'nekevus, or it's talking about men and women that are mechuyev. You go through the chinuch all over. Either it's only for men, or it's noyeg b'zacharim b'nekevus. Nekevus doesn't mean a female animal; it's referring to the people. So Lamais is like this. The shaila is, if you look in the smag, we'll get to that in a minute. The shaila is, it could be it's not even found in the smag. We'll get to that in a minute. However, but the chinuch at least, the chinuch says, "V'noyheges mitzvah zu b'chol mokim b'chol zman b'zacharim u'b'nekevos." Now, you could, if you really want, you could say b'zacharim u'b'nekevos is referring to the animal. You could say that, but all over, when the chinuch says b'zacharim u'b'nekevos, it's referring to men and women. Are ladies mitzvah and the mitzvah? So the answer is ladies are mitzvah. So Mela, what comes out? So b'koyach this kasha, they were matcher Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz's dechia on the menaker, and Mela, what comes out is they wanted to say Yitaka have to be machmir also on this menaker's gid. Up until now, for thousands of years, we knew what the gid was. This menaker, this baki, came up with a new gid Hanashe. So Mamela, what comes out is that you have to be machmer for both of them. Why do you have to be machmer for both? The only tzad to be meyashiv this menaker was to say because noyeg was charbon nekevus, and you don't find this new gid in a female animal. But noyeg was charbon nekevus. It's not talking about the animals. It's talking about the people. Just a lashon. The kivan should toys nizraka lefnei ha'goinim. The people, the rabbim that had this kasha said, so it was a toys of Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, and therefore we come back. You have to be machmir. Ve'ein lechol elam kein nikru mehem, both gediyim, both. The Chassam Sofer Netshuva is miyashiv, and he circles back like Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz with the following, and he says like this. The Gemara in Chagiga, Lagapi, they didn't smicha. So the Gemara says it's a Gemara in Chagiga. We've learned today in the past in the Kollel. Smicha is not noyeg b'noshim. Ladies are not mechuyev in smicha, because the Gemara says b'nei Yisrael by smicha v'loy b'nei Yisrael. Ladies are not mitzvah b'smicha. These are machlokes in the Gemara if they're b'chlal allowed to. Are they allowed to or they're not allowed to? But this is not mechuyev. So the question is, why don't you say, just like by smicha it says b'nei Yisrael, and we dash and v'loy b'nei Yisrael, the ladies are not mechuyev b'smicha. Why don't you say the same thing by gid Hanashe also? Al kain, in this week's parsha, al kain lo yoichlu b'nei Yisrael's gid Hanashe. So maybe it should only be b'nei Yisrael v'loy b'nei Yisrael. Only men should be aser to eat the gid Hanashe. Ladies should be allowed to eat the gid Hanashe. As I frag the Chassam Sofer. So what are you going to answer? You're going to answer Pashat, that only by a mitzvah saseh do you say to be mamayit nashim, let's say by smicha or any other place where it's become vaseh, but to be over a lav, when it's coming to be over a lav, over there you don't say v'loy nashim. So here we're talking about a lav, the isagid Hanashe is a lav, so maybe it's b'nei Yisrael, you don't say b'nei Yisrael v'loy b'nei Yisrael, nashim are also mitzvah, fine. Frekte Chassam Sofer, I'm going to show you that even by a lav, we make a drasha, b'nei Yisrael v'loy b'nei Yisrael. Where do you have that drasha? By the issa to be betama, a kohen is not allowed to be metama. So we darshan over there, b'nei the kahanim v'loy b'nois kahanim. And there it's a lav. There's a issa lav for a kohen to be metame, and a bas kohen, a lady, a kohenes, is allowed to be metama. So even though it's a lav, we have the drasha. Emor el kahanim b'nei Aharon, And we darshan, the Gemara in Kedushin, we darshan b'nei Aharon v'loi b'noi Aharon. Meaning to say is in the lav that Kehanim have, ladies Kehanim are not nichlal. So Ibazoi, just like we darshan lagabe a kohen v'loi kohenes, that a kohenes is allowed to be metama, why don't we say the same thing also about the Issa Gid Hanashe, that ladies are not nichlal in the Isser? The Torah says in this week's Parsha, Al Kein Lo Yoichel B'nei Yisrael, it's like Gid Hanashe. So maybe it's B'nei Yisrael v'loi B'noi Yisrael, and ladies are not mechuyev, are not mitzvah, they're not nichlal in the Isser of eating Gid Hanashe. Says the Chassam Sofer the following. Be'etzem, we're not memayit a lady from any lav. A lav is always men and women included in every lav, unless there's a particular reason that to say why ladies shouldn't be included. There has to be a reason. If it just says b'nei Yisrael, if it only says b'nei v'loi b'nois, for that itself, we don't say that it's to be memayit nashim. When are we memayit nashim? When there's a reason to say that they're not included. By tumas kaihanim, so there's a very big chiluk between a kohen and a kohenes. A kohen does the avodah. A kohen, I was looked the other enough. A kohen l'mashal gets an aliyah first. There's a lot of chilukim between a kohen. A kohen does an avodah. The kohenes does not do the avodah. So once you see a chiluk between a kohen and a kohenes, it's legabe kuhuna. Mamela it's mistaber to say the drasha that b'nei Aharon v'loi b'noi Aharon. But stamazoi, even if it says b'nei Yisrael, you don't say b'nei Yisrael v'loi b'noi Yisrael. So mamela what? So mamela over here by the Gid Hanashe, it says b'nei Yisrael, but why should you be mechalek? So mamela ladies are included. Says the Chassam Sofer, if you're going to tell me that there's a chilek in the isser of eating the Gid Hanashe, meaning to say is it's only on an animal, the Gid Hanashe is only on an animal, a male animal, a zocher, a male animal that has a Gid but not a female animal, right? That's how the Menachah found, the Gid that he found was a Gid that's only in a male animal, not a female. Says the Chassam Sofer, if that would be the case like the Menachah, if that would be true, then we would darshan b'nei Yisrael have the Isser of Gid Hanashe v'loi b'noi Yisrael, because we find in the Isser Gid Hanashe that it's only applicable on a male animal. Meaning to say, it's just like by Kohanim we said, you know why we say b'nei Aharon v'loi b'noi Aharon? Because there's already a chilek between a kohen and a kohenes, so we would say the same thing by Gid Hanashe also, we'd be mechalek. The Mela says the Chassam Sofer al karchach, not like the Menachah, and the Gid Hanashe is a Gid Hanashe that's found by a male and a female animal. So Mela was matzdik like Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, but oifen that Menachah is not right, and back to whatever we had, the history of Kollel Yisrael, what the Gid Hanashe is. So what do we have so far with clarity? These are Isser HaTorah in this week's Parsha of eating the Gid Hanashe. We're not so familiar with it because when you buy it, it's already without. We're not busy with it, b'chlal. And that's not the shmuz for today, but b'chlal, the minig by the Ashkenazim is not to eat the whole back of the animal, so it's included over there. The Menachah wanted to make a tumul about a different gid, that Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz discovered that gid is only a gid by a male animal and not a female animal. And for that, the Chassam Sofer was matzdik like Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, and the Mela comes out that you don't have to be machmir, like to also take out this new gid. On the note,
the Ashkenazim don't eat the back of the animal. What's the point? Because of the gid, huh?
The gid, and there's also chaylev also that we're not, these are more about it. It's a discussion, it's interesting. It was negay actually before the war when they made the gzeiras hashchita. So there was a whole tumult maybe to, yes, be able to eat the back of the animal and take out the Gid Hanashe and eat it. Eat the rest of the back.
know how to do that today. So.
There has to be the Svardim Takadu. In restaurants in Eretz Yisrael, it's shchiach, you know, they have certain cuts that are only for the Svardim, Ashkenazim don't eat. Just to go into a little piece of, let's call it, history of this shtickle of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz brings that in the Smag, it says, B'zacharmu b'nekevos. Now, we asked that L'chair B'zacharmu b'nekevos is not referring to the animals, it's referring to the people. L'maisa, we said already how the Chassam Sofer is matzik that forget about if Moshe Matzinu in the Smag. The Chassam Sofer says L'maisa we would be mechalik and say that ladies are not mechuyev. But the Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz says like it's mavur in the Smag. And we asked, L'chayra Zacharim of an Akavas is referring to the people, it's not referring to the animal of the Gid Hanashe. Akasha. So it's interesting, it's written up. There was a chayker, a researcher that wanted to get down to the bottom of it, to understand exactly what's going on. He looked up these in LA, in a library over there, he found a copy of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, crazy placey, that belonged to Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz himself, though they actually say that it wasn't actually his copy, it was an einikel of his. It was an einikel of his, and also his name was Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Rayis Lakan, that's less relevant to what we're talking about right now, if it was Mamashem or it was his einikel, but there's a Hagah on the crazy placey, on where it says Smag, and instead of Smag, Samach Mem Gimel, it says Samach Hey Nun. Switched around the letters. I have over here a copy of that sefer. It was printed in the time of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. The question is if he himself wrote it, or his Einikel wrote it. If you could see over here, highlighted, this is the copy from the library. But on the side, you see it's like a little R over here. Instead of Smag, it says Samach Hey Nun. What's Samach Hey Nun? So Samach Hey Nun is Sefer Hilchas Nicker. If you take from the Baal Itter, if you take a look in the Tur in Yeridea and Hilchas Nicker, the Tur brings Sefer Hilchas Seder, Sefer Hilchas Nicker. If you take a look in the Sefer Hilchas Nicker, what the Tur brings, while going through Hilchas Nicker, he says like this. The Tur says, when you're doing Nicker, when you're taking out the Gid Hanashe, Seder, actually, it's Seder HaNicker Mebala Nicker, and he says like this. He says when you cut it out, so he says you cut out Ahim, the hair, B'makom sheyesh hazachris, so it's talking about a male animal, but then he says like this, V'chaytech, you cut out hazachris v'hanekevas v'anakvas. So he's talking about in the Gid Hanashe, not in the Hilchas Gid Hanashe to take it out. They speak about why you have to take it out, but in the Hilchas Gid Hanashe, he also speaks about taking out the chelik hazachris v'hanekevas of the animal, meaning to say that klar mefurish, the Torah from the Baal Iter, from the Rishonim, is clearly that the Hilchas Gid Hanashe is applicable to a female animal. So Mamela, that what we said, we started from Yonasan Eibeshitz, that was matcha this menaker, which found a new gid that's only by a zachar, not by a nekeva. So said Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, I see here in the Rishonim say that Hilchas Gid Hanashe is applicable even by a female animal. Just to conclude the inyan, that Rugas Aboisim, the Tzelem Arav, brings a raya that Gid Hanashe is applicable even by a female animal, not like the menaker. In Kachim, in Masechtes Chulin, the Peruk of Gid Hanashe, so the Mishnah says it's noyig b'chulin u'b'mikdashim. Gid Hanashe is not only by Chulin, also by Kachim. Also, you have to take out the Gid Hanashe. Zokta Rugas Aboisim, if you take a look in Rashi in Zvachim Daf Lamed Hey, you see the Ga'onis. Rashi says, Kol heiche de nokat hai lishna, of Mukdashim, Mayri bin Akevas. So Rashi says that when the Mishnah in Chulin says B'Chulin Ube Mukdashim, but Mukdashim is also talking about Akevas. So Melevaita, if the Mishnah says Gid Hanashe is Noyeg, B'Chulin Ube Mukdashim, and Mukdashim means Mayri bin Akevas. So you see, Gid Hanashe is Noyeg bin Akevas. So it can't be this new Gid Hanashe that Menaka was talking about. Just to conclude and be Messiah today's shiur with the inyan, the mitzvah loises Shabbat of Gid Hanashe. I would like to share with the Olam the chinuch. This is a gewaldige takeaway in the mitzvah of Gid Hanashe. We spoke about it. Is it is it a new Gid Hanashe that this Menaka found? Is it noyeg in a animal that's a female? The chinuch says, what's the reason? Al kin la yochlu b'nei Yisrael the Gid Hanashe. I hear there was a fight between the Malach. How Chazal say, Rashi brings that it was sorry shal Esav. Beseder, very good. So what? Mamela what? And Yaakov Avinu was nitzel. So why isn't it gay for us? There's a lot of things that happened. This is what do we have to remember over here? Says the chinuch like this: Mesharshei HaMitzvah. This is a remes for Klal Yisrael. Throughout the Arichas HaGolus, Klal Yisrael is going to be going through a hard, long Golus. And just like Yaakov Avinu was fighting with Sori Shal Esav, and Yaakov went through tsar, he was hurt. Vatika b'kaf yerech Yaakov, and Yaakov went through the Nesoyin, through tsaris, b'Sori Shal Esav. So too Klal Yisrael is also going to go through with Esav, with Sori Shal Esav, through the Golus with Tsaris. And just like Yaakov Avinu came out and won, so too Klal Yisrael is going to come out. Remesu, the Malach, just like the Malach, Kamoy Shematzino Yaakov came out, Kain Yizrach Lanu Hashemesh Shal Mashiach, we're going to come out. The Maral in Derech Chaim also points out that Yaakov went through Moiri de Getzaris. Yaakov Avinu went through Shiroiv Yamav. His lashon is Shiroiv Yamav Hoye Betzar. Roiv Yamav Hoye Betzar. And these are Moiri de Medrash Tanchuma. The Medrash Tanchuma actually lists out. We could also go through it, but the Medrash lists out L'lamdach shahar b'yisurim avru al Yaakov. From the beginning, it was non-stop tzaris. In the beginning, when he went to Lavan, then afterwards, he was done with Lavan. He was leaving Lavan. Lavan wanted to kill him. Let alone when he was by Lavan itself, how much he went through, how much Lavan tricked him. He left, Lavan ran after him. He was done with Lavan, then came Esav running after him. And then it goes on, weiter and weiter. This week's parasha, Dina. And then if you, Bikish Yaakov Leisha B'Shalva, Yaakov said, enough, I want to retire. Kafetz Olav Rigzer Shal Yosef. But what happened afterwards? Afterwards, at the end of his life, Lamaisa Mitzrayim, when he had Yosef ended off Lamaisa, Yaakov Avinu ended off with all the tzaras, ended off B'Shalva. Zokt the chinuch, and that's what he says later on, the Maral, V'achros hayamim, after all the Golus, Ki yi ar Golus oruch ma'od, it'll be a very long Golus, but afterwards, the Golus is going to go away, and it's going to be B'toiva. Just one more point on this note, that the Gid Hanashe is to remember the tzaras, to remember what happened over here. And there was a nes, Yaakov Avinu ended by coming out, by being nitzel. Frektra Moshe, this week's parsha, nice word to say over Shabbos. We make a zecher for the nes that happened. Or like we expanded how the chinuch says that it's more than just this particular nes, it's to remember we're going to come out of Golus. But Akapanim, it's a zecher for the nes. A zecher for the nes. Alkin lo yochel Gid Hanashe. Frektra Moshe, where do you find that when we make a zecher for a nes, that it's with a lav? Anytime you make a zecher, We sit in the sukkah to remember the Anani HaKavod. We eat matzah. Anything we do it on a positive note, but kum v'aseh to remember the Nes. Frekter Moshe, why when we remember this Nes, that Yaakov Avinu was saved by the fight with the Malach of Esav, that over here it's belav by not eating the Gid Hanashe. Right? We don't eat the Gid Hanashe, and remember, it's a little hard to remember because where do we not eat it? You just eat the meat. But yes, we eat the meat, and there's no Gid Hanashe to remember this, to remember. But Frekter Moshe, where is it belav? Belav, why is it belav? L'chayr, maybe it should be that you eat a certain something, bekum vaseh, to remember. Says Rav Moshe Yesod Gadol, just like we're mispalel every day, not to be to al tevyein l'dei nisayin. Even though an nisayin is a morid gazach, and a nisayin elevates a person, Yisurim, like the Gemara says, lo yehein v'lo yischar. We don't want Yisurim, but if Yisurim is matzel a person, takes away its machaper. But avada, we don't want Yisurim. We don't want the nisayin. The nisayin is a morid gazach. A person's here in this world. It's not a free ride. He's nisyonis, but we spell not to have nisyonis. The so too says Rav Moshe, be'etzem, we would rather not have the golus. It's for us to remember, just like Yaakov Avinu went through hardship and came out at the end, we're going to go through a long golus, and to remember that we're going to come out at the end, it'll be l'toiva. Says Rav Moshe, we would prefer to cut out the whole golus. Avad is important, he's a tzorich for the golus. We need the golus, but we would rather not have it. Says Rav Moshe, that's why we have the mitzvahs Gid Hanashe beloisas. Avad it's to remember the Nes. Avad it's to remember like any other Nes. However, says Rav Moshe, really we would prefer not to have. We would not want to have the golus and then have the Nes of coming out of the very long golus. There's still a klal, so we'd rather not have the Nes, but al kapanim, it's still to remember the Nes, so that's why we have it. We should talk be zoicher, like what the chinuch ends off of this mitzvah, just like Yaakov Avinu, shezor choloi hashemesh l'refuasoi, and Yaakov Avinu is noisha, kein yizrach lanu hashemesh, to son shel Mashiach, and it should be marpas mitzareinu, and we should have yigolenu, the gula shlema, b'mheir b'yameinu, amen.
This person that came